Hi, I truly wish that I could be doing this presentation in front of you instead of in front of my webcam on my laptop. I wanted to discuss franchising and talk about whether or not it's safer or more risky compared to independent business, which those two would be the usual suspects, I guess, when it comes to entering your own business. I should get started by saying that I basically lived in a gas station when I was younger. My mom owned three of them, three separate gas stations. Her first one being LB Shortstop. And then there was another one and that had a little bakery in the back where she made pizza. And then this one right here, which would be Super Track. I remember being probably 3 years old, 4 years old, taking baths in the sink in the back, and then basically just watching movies in the little office that my mom had transformed for me in the dark with my little movie player that I had. Let's get to identifying why franchises might be a good idea. First thing I want to look at actually is what happened to all the diners? Where have they gone? They seem to make a complete disappearance within recent years, as you never see any of those old-fashioned stop-in diners, and that's largely in part due to the fact that in recent years the franchises have been major, huge popularity increase, and that's because they are safe on the principal investment because of many of the prerequisite work has already been done. This includes marketing, a recognizable name, and a understanding of what product you're selling, and there's already a relationship established with the consumer. That's why I consider it the smart decision, because you kind of have to know what you're doing to get ahead with it. That's because there's a lot to do with the active decision making of the franchisee. Now, what do we do with this information? Well, we first thing you do is go to a franchisee consultant, as there are quite a few of these companies that actually are dedicated to helping young entrepreneurs and people looking to be franchisees, getting them help so that way they can actually start their own business. One of the names that comes to mind is a Neighborly company, the Neighborly Company. They do a lot of work with they have a lot to do with home restoration companies or franchises, such as Mr. Handyman or Mr. Rooter, any of those, like Glass Genie. Now, why does any of that matter? Well, they can vastly help to kind of mitigate the work that you have to do as the consumer, or as the franchisee, because of the fact that they try to match you and your goals with what franchise might work best with you. Now, there are quite a few franchises. It's estimated to be that there are 15 franchises that open yearly. And if you boil that down, there's about 8 franchises opening. Or there's a franchise that opens every 8 minutes of it, every regular business day. Now, what do you need to actually get into franchising? Well, first, it requires a upfront fee. A lot of different franchises require you to pay a specific fee tailored to about how much, how recognizable their brand name is. Like McDonald's charges about like $1 million to $2 million for using their brand name to be a franchise of them. However, that comes with the marketing already done, the recognizable brand name, and general safety of an investment. Well, what do you get out of that besides just those things? Well, there's a good amount of money that comes along with being an owner of a franchise. Here I found some information that says that franchises can end up getting anywhere between under $50,000 on the lower end, and at the higher end, people are very wealthy and yearly getting over $250,000. And I talked to George, which is someone who actually works at Neighborly, and who takes great pride and passion in helping young entrepreneurs get into owning their own franchise. Well, he said that many of them are making well over $250,000 yearly, and that even their work-life balance is a little bit one-sided at some points, but it's all about time management, he said, and that franchising is, although it's difficult, it can be very rewarding, definitely when you compare it to independent business. That at first, with independent business, it may not seem like it's quite as one-sided, considering the fact that independent business has a lot larger of a price margin. Price margin. That's because independent businesses don't have that initial upfront safety that franchises have. With independent businesses, you suffer from, not being a confident brand name. So a lot of consumers won't have confidence in your product, meaning that there's a lot lower chance that someone's actually going to buy your product. However, businesses also suffer from large failure rates. At about 5 years down the line, 50% of independent businesses fail. And that's a little bit, that's a huge amount. At 10 years, 70% of them have already shut their doors. However, I couldn't find an exact number for franchises and their failure rates because that's a very complex and difficult situation to tackle because there's so many different brand names. However, I compiled a chart that shows the top 20 or top 50 best brands and the lowest 50 brands or franchises. And Comfort Keepers is at the top with under an 8% default rate, while Noble Roman Pizza is at the very bottom. You can't see it because the chart's kind of smaller. But Noble Roman Pizza at the bottom has the worst default rate with 92.6%. I don't think I'm going to buy one of those soon. And this is just a graph to show you how more graphs generally increase the quality of your presentation. My final concludings with franchises is that franchising is a smart idea if you have the means to do so. If you understand if you take advantage of the systems that are already in place and you follow the template that's kind of already been set, you can run a great franchise. And it's entirely up to you as the franchisee to not screw it up and actually manage your time and manage yourself and your people as best as possible. And if you can't do that, then franchising isn't a good idea. But if you can, it can be massively rewarding. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to me speak for 10 minutes about franchising.